to EventCIO Conversations. My name is Donna Kastner, and today our topic is the future of meetings and events. Joining us today is Bruce Harris. In 1970, Bruce founded Conferon, now known as Experian, the first full-time and largest independent meeting consultant firm in the world. Bruce is known by many as the guy who put meeting planning on the map, and he's been recognized again and again, most recently as the PCMA Education Foundation Meeting Professional Honoree. Bruce, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
You know, I mentioned we're going to talk about the future, but I want to look back over our shoulder as we get started here. And way back when, Trade Show Magazine once wrote that you helped turn meeting planning into a profession. Was that your vision from the start?
Not really. When I started the company, it was a hotel rep company. But I remember I went to our first customer. It was Parker Hannafin. I should say first customers. I was calling on the company at the time. And the client looked at me and he said, can you help us with meeting planning? These hotels don't seem to be able to help us much. And I'm just starting the company and I'm desperate for work. And I said, sure. And I didn't know what I was getting into. What proceeded after that was a learning experience for sure as we put together this meeting. And I fell in love with the process. I learned so much, I made a lot of mistakes, and it was clear that I loved much more than being just a hotel rep. So over time, business, in fact pretty rapidly, the business moved quickly to focusing just on meeting planning. And I got to tell you though, being the first in any industry is not an easy thing. It took 5 years to break even, and there were many, many times thereafter down that I was not so sure that we were going to make it.
Well, so you put meeting planning as a profession out there, but you went one step further, and there was a Meeting News had you on the front page, and they wrote about how you changed the face of contracts for the meetings industry. I have two questions for you. First, how did you get focused on contracts? And second, has that contract process evolved as you would have expected it to?
All right, well, I'll take the first one first. Contracts, when they, and it's a long time ago, I'm afraid to say, when I started meeting planning, were simply a one-way communication that came from the hotel to the planner or to the executive that was running the meeting. Oftentimes it was a letter, but the documents came from the hotel. There wasn't any negotiation on it, and naturally, as you might imagine, it was very one-sided. So during that time period, I was writing articles for Meeting News magazine, and I had the opportunity to focus on different things that were just blatantly unfair. So I'd write articles about those particular issues. We got great response from the audience. So I wrote more and more, and eventually Meeting News magazine had me travel around the country doing a road show, 2-day classes on contracts and negotiation. And from that, I was invited to industry events to speak. And what ended up happening, it made sense to a lot of people that the meeting planners themselves pushed back. It was kind of a grassroots effort, and hotels were, in essence, forced to change into something that was more equitable for all sides. Pretty exciting time period. The second part of the question was, have they evolved in the direction I thought? I never anticipated, so I apologize to everybody in advance, that they'd turn out as long as they've turned out. The reality is that these contracts oftentimes reflect damages that have happened to one party or the other. So typically after a recession, where hotels have been damaged because they had a poor pickup, there will be changes. And right after this recession's over with, and it will end at sometime soon, I hope, get ready, because the contracts, as large as they are right now, will incorporate new changes that the hotels will be putting in to accommodate or to cover the losses that they've had from this last downturn in the economy. I hate to say it, but that's the way it's going to be.
Well, let's go further on. You know, it is a tough economy right now for all businesses, and meeting planners are definitely taking some hits. There's a lot of talk about the necessity of meetings. Are they truly essential to our business? You know, do you have some advice for planners out there that might be getting that kind of resistance?
Right. Well, our industry is reaching out right now to try to make a difference and show what the values of meetings are. But I'll come back to that, but the reality is this. In the corporate marketplace, there are there are thousands plus planners that serve the corporate marketplace, independent planners. And for those people, I predict that many of them are going to go out of business. It is a very, very tough market to be in because the reality is that corporate meetings are non-essential. When a corporation is dealing with budget problems, it's too easy to cut a meeting. And that's just a reality. It's been like that for every single recession or economic downturn. So people who are focused solely on the corporate side are going to run into problems. On the association side, it's a little different matter. The associations are going to have to find some way to appeal more directly and economically to their constituents, or else they're going to suffer. But in the background, with all this going on and the negative things going on in the economy, our industry associations are banding together. They're spending over $1 million trying to gather information to show the value of meetings, so that in the future, when we run into a downturn in the economy, there'll be data that shows what those values of meetings are. I would like to think, Donna, that will be successful, but my gut tells me that when it comes time to make those hard cuts, corporations are still going to find that meetings are too easy to eliminate in order to save other pet projects.
You know, as we wrap up this conversation, so all this change is coming down the road. I'm looking at this through the eyes of the planner. What steps can planners take right now to really position themselves in a good way so that as they march into the future, they really have set the stage for a successful and fulfilling career? What can they do now?
Well, I'm going to start off with some hard news.
Okay.
There's a reality here, and the reality is that as we go through economic cycles, when we get to a downturn, planners are going to suffer because meetings inevitably are going to be canceled because they are a cost item. So I'd love to tell you that being a meeting planner is a tremendously secure job, but it's not terribly less secure than a lot of other jobs, but it's not as secure as we'd all like it to be. Planners are going to have to look forward to changing the way they look at the issue of planning, because it's not just an issue of logistics. We have to look at, as a planner, how do we interface with our clients and solve their problems? There may be problems that aren't directly related to how a meeting room is set, but how do we get across, how do we help them get more people to attend? How do we improve the experience that the people have when they are there? How do we should always also be doing this, or always be doing this, and that is, how do we make those meetings more financially viable? The more we can get out of just the planning part and become an important consultant partner, the more reasons that we will keep our customers and hopefully maintain a strong customer base as we go forward.
Bruce, you've given us a lot to think about. I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me.
And that wraps up this edition of EventCIO Conversations. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.